Welcome to the Pat White Show.
Well, here we go, ladies and gentlemen, another episode of the Pat White Show. This is episode number 4. We're going to cover a lot of stuff, especially the election. A lot of stuff involving the election, the post-election stuff, things you need to know, and maybe you didn't know about what was happening. And then, speaking of the election, well, President Trump is moving at warp speed to appoint people. That's all coming up. We're going to be talking about some of that, and maybe somebody you didn't know. And then, hey, layoffs at Jeep. Is things really going bad in the auto industry in America? And finally, some thoughts by a local state representative by the name of Bob Morris. His ideas are actually pretty good. That's all coming up on this episode of the Pat White Show, starting right now. Well, the 2024 election is over. You know who won, and you know who lost. Republicans won with a landslide of votes. Something, well, some people on the other side didn't think was going to happen. 312 electoral votes, 74 million popular votes to Kamala's 69 million. Hey, they haven't had that kind of voting. Republicans haven't been the majority on the popular vote since what, the 1980s, late 80s, I think. But here's the deal. It was gigantic, and the left never saw it coming. People like Michael Moore, remember him from Fahrenheit 911, bowling for Columbine? Oh, he guaranteed women were going to come out. Everybody was guaranteeing women were going to come out. If you watched The View, or you watched CNBC, or you watched CNN, they were all pointing fingers saying, white women, and uneducated white women, did not follow the rules. And they're blaming uneducated white women. Well, my wife's very educated, and trust me, she didn't vote for Kamala. Neither did a lot of other women. White women, Mexican, Asian, blacks, they all said, hey, we're tired of this stuff. We're going to take a shot on somebody else who actually made it pretty decent 4 years ago. And now the Democrats are saying, it's Joe Biden's fault. It's his fault. No, it wasn't his fault. You ran a lousy frickin' candidate. She was a putz. They spent $1 billion on this woman. And now you guys, the Democrat Party's $20 million in debt because you hired all these artists to come out and play, figuring that was going to bring people in to vote for Kamala. It didn't work. And now you're in debt for $20 million, and those people who went on stage and performed and did everything else aren't going to get paid. You're going to stiff them. Well, you know what? That's the problem we have in America. Look, people said, we're tired of this. And what has happened is the Democrat Party has been taken over by a very, very small group of people. The LGBTQ, the trans, whatever it is crowd. That was the entire thing that they were going on. And then, of course, the abortion thing, figuring that every woman in America was going to go, no, we must have abortion. No, they don't. There are a lot of women who don't believe in that. And more than you think. But that was the gamble they took, figuring, well, we're going to pull this off because women are going to vote. Well, they didn't. And white men, guess what? We voted because we figured out what's right and what's wrong. Now, here's another thing to think about. Joe Scarborough, you know him in the mornings, him and his wife? He was stunned when he found out the price of a pound of butter. He went, what? It's how much? Is there a gold frame around it? What does that tell you? Joe Scarborough hasn't been to a grocery store in years because his servants take care of that. He doesn't do that. He doesn't have to worry about it. He's part of the elite. That's the problem we're dealing with, folks. The Democrats have become the highly educated elite, and they are snooty. They are the smarty pants. And the Republicans are kind of like the regular people. And that's why they lost. Probably some more reasons to go with it. I'm just telling you exactly what happened. And now you know. Well, what do you say we take a little look back at the election of 2024 and things that may make you go, All right, here's the deal. In 2000, Donald Trump, when he ran, he got around 74 million, almost 75 million votes. And he thought he had won. He said, hey, I got more votes than I did in 2016, more votes. And yet Joe Biden got 81 million votes against Trump's 74, 70, about 74, 2, 74, 4, somewhere in there. But Biden got 81 million votes. 2024, Donald Trump got only, you ready? Only 100,000 more votes than he garnered in 2000. So roughly 75 million votes. Kamala scored 72 million. Now that's down nearly 9 million, or almost 10 million, let's say 10 million, down from what Joe Biden did 4 years earlier. How is that possible? How did she get 10 million less votes than Biden did 4 years earlier? What happened to those 10 million people? They die? Did they move to some other place? Moved they out of the country? How did she get 10 million less votes? Did 10 million less people say, no, I'm not voting? Did they decide I'm going to vote for Trump? No, they didn't, because he had the same number of votes roughly that he had in 2000. What happened to 10 million votes? How did they disappear? Now, that's a very good question. Now, I don't want to cover this too much, but people said, well, there was cheating that went on in the election. And now that I understand that Kamala got only 72 million and Trump got 75 million, and yet Biden and 4 years earlier got 81 million, somebody explain to me how that happened. I'll tell you, here's one of the things you better know about. Back in 2000, the states run their own elections. And the blue states changed their election rules in some ways that allowed people to vote who couldn't vote, didn't vote, whatever. And then they had ballot boxes. They had ballot harvesting. They had boxes put everywhere that weren't even monitored so people could drive up and dump how many ballots they wanted to into them. This was in the blue states. And then they had counting that went on in ways that people go, what are they doing? What are they shutting up the windows for? What are they pasting over the windows with newspapers so nobody could see what was going on? And why did they stop counting and suddenly resume counting in the middle of the night? Some good questions. I'm just asking this. How did it happen that Kamala lost 10 million votes from what Joe Biden did 4 years earlier? Somebody explain that one to me. Because Trump got only 100,000 more votes in 2024 than he got in 2000. Something in that math does not smell right, folks. So maybe, just maybe something happened that maybe the people who said there was election, bad stuff going on. Can't prove it necessarily, maybe never be able to prove it. But you look at the numbers, something, folks, isn't right. How do you lose 10 million votes in 4 years and not go somewhere else? And don't tell me 10 million people didn't vote. Just telling you what's going on. Now you know the numbers, now you understand. Was there cheating in 2000? That's not my call. It's your call for what you think. Well, recently I was watching TV and Jesse Waters was on the Fox network, and he was talking about an incident involving his mother. Not that I would care, but it turns out that Jesse has not been invited to his mother's Thanksgiving dinner. Family, that's right, not being invited to the family dinner because his mother was very angry about Jesse's political vote, how he did. And I was thinking, that's just television hoopla, that's no big deal. You make this stuff up, oh, the mother doesn't like me. But, his mother is a liberal, and that's perfectly fine. But it turns out that he may be correct. And the reason I say that is because on MSNBC, Joy Reid was talking to a lady, Dr. Amanda Calhoun. And she is the chief psychiatry resident at at Yale University. And the chief psychiatric resident at Yale University said that for liberals who are devastated about Trump's reelection involving their family members who didn't vote the same way they did, she said, quote, so if you're going into a situation where you have family members, where you have close friends who you know have voted in ways that are against you, it's completely fine to not be around these people and to tell them why. Really? So now we have someone who's supposed to be learned saying they voted differently than you, then you don't need to be around them. Shun them. And cross them out of your life. And I thought, why are we doing this? You know, you can still be angry at somebody, but you're still friends. I have people I know who are obviously don't vote the same way I would vote, but we're still friends because that's what part of life is all about. You may disagree, it may be disagreeable, but you can still get along and be friends. Until I found out, a couple of people that I know personally are saying, hey, they can't have Thanksgiving dinner with their family because things have become so fractured involving this political season. They can't have Thanksgiving together. And that's not just one family. It turns out that's more than one. So why has America turned this way, so viciously vile against each other, family members? Because one side votes one way and one side votes the other way. Well, apparently that's going on. The people I know may not be the only ones. There may be others that you know, maybe someone in your family. You don't want to be around, you can't be around, and now you're viscerally angry at them, and you don't want to associate with them, be around them, celebrate any event. Folks, when we start going down that alley, that's a rabbit hole you don't want to go into. Because when you do, it's going to start getting worse and not better. You know, these are the kind of things that created things like the Civil War back in the 1860s. Brother against brother, father against son. And now we're kind of leaning the same direction. Because the way somebody voted, somebody's opinion, and when opinion starts turning family member against family member, we have descended into an area that's not very good. Can we change it? I hope so. Will it change? You can pray that it will. But right now, apparently it's a bigger thing than most people think. How it's going to end up is anybody's guess. Hopefully, your family members and you are getting along regardless of how you voted. Just something to think about. Well, for a while now, I have been talking about a problem with Stellantis. Stellantis is the company that's a European company that bought up Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, and all those folks, and is now facing a very difficult problem because their products that they sell in the United States, the Chrysler products, the Jeep products, are the worst performing in the entire United States, worse than anybody else. And they've got over 1 million units sitting on dealers' lots they can't get rid of. Why? Well, simply because in many cases they overpriced what they had. Take a Jeep, for example. A certain Jeep that started out was $30,000. They raised the price on that same Jeep to over $40,000. Now, I say this only because I am a Jeep fan. I drive a Jeep. I like Jeeps. But they're overpricing the thing, and the ones they're producing cost over $100,000, and I ain't buying that kind of stuff. So, here's what's happening in Jeep out of Toledo, where they make the Jeeps. They're going to be laying off over 1,000 people. That's right. The Jeep factory in Ohio is going to lay off over 1,000 people because the company is trying to figure out how to get rid of the inventory that's sitting on dealers' lots that nobody wants to buy. A guy by the name of Kirk Hodnott, he works at the Jeep factory, and he says, hey, I could be one of the 1,139 people going to be laid off in the announcement that Jeep put out, because they have to put out an announcement a certain time period before they actually do the layoff. It's under work laws and everything else that's going on. And Jeep made the announcement last Wednesday rather, and they're going to stop production of the Gladiator. Now, I don't remember what the Gladiator was, because I'm used to the Jeep wagons and things like that. I mean, I'm driving a Jeep Patriot, for crying out loud, that's 2015. Not fancy, just like the Jeep. All right? But here's the problem Mr. Hadnot is concerned about. He said, look, I've been working at Jeep all my life. If I get laid off and it's indefinite, what am I going to do? How am I going to change jobs? How am I going to learn another skill, another trade? So he's worried about what his life is going to be because his entire life has been doing nothing but building Jeeps. Well, the bigger problem is Stellantis, folks. Stellantis has a major, major problem, and what are they going to do with all those 14 brands that they have? The biggest rumor right now is Stellantis could sell the Chrysler, Jeep, Dodge, and Ram package to another country, possibly China. And the reason for doing that is simple, because if they sell it to China, President Trump says he's going to start imposing a huge amount of tariffs on stuff made outside the United States. And if China decides to buy the Chrysler edition, the Chrysler, the Jeep, the Dodge, the Ram, all the other stuff, that's American-made stuff. So they'll be producing the cars, and they aren't going to have to pay tariffs on it. It's a way around the block, way to beat the system. Well, that's what they're thinking about. So, is Stellantis going to sell it off to the folks at Chinese? BYD, I believe the company's name is. I don't know, but there is another rumor that the Chinese company and Stellantis could actually merge, because Stellantis is having some financial problems. Could they merge up and the Chinese have a combo deal? Well, that's a possibility. All of these things could be happening. But the big thing is 1,100 people in Toledo, Ohio are going to be laid off by Jeep, and they're going to be out of a job. There are many things that Donald Trump promised when he was running for the presidency of the United States, and now that he's the president, people are saying, well, is he going to do those things he talked about doing? They make promises, but they never keep them. Well, here's one promise that he has already acted on, and he isn't even in office yet. He's the president-elect. But he's appointed Tom Homan to be the border czar. And I remember when Biden appointed Kamala to be the border czar for him, not that she did anything, but Tom Homan, trust me, appointing him border czar, and he said, yeah, I'm taking the job, he really means it. Now, here's the thing. Tom was, he was the head of ICE. Well, he was the temporary head of ICE some years ago, back in the first Trump administration, was there for a short period of time. And he has been very vocal since about what needs to be done, and I mean very vocal. He appeared in Congress in front of Ms. Ocasio-Cortez, and she talked about breaking up families with parents. He said, hey, lady, politely, of course. He said, when I was in the police officer, if I arrested somebody from drunk driving and he's had a kid in the car or whatever, I separated them. And if someone did something, committed a crime, their family, I separated them from their family, put them in jail. She said, well, that doesn't count against immigrants. He said, if they're here illegally, they're here illegally. Now, what he's saying is we got a problem, we'll ship the entire family back. We don't care. Well, what about those states that say, well, we're not going to cooperate. We aren't going to have our police or our state police cooperate with the federals? The federal agents, Tom Homan said, I don't care. If I got to send 200 agents to Boston, I'm going to send 200 agents to Boston. We are going to get this thing, and we're going to start with the criminals, and we are going to get rid of these people, and we are going to send them back where they came from, because America finally has had enough of this. Take a look at the crime that we've had. You've got MS-13 on the East Coast. You've got Tren de Aragua on the West Coast. Matter of fact, taking over what? Part of Colorado, outside of Denver, Aurora. Yeah, you've seen the video on TV. You know what's going on. They're recruiting new people, folks. This is getting worse. But Tom Homan was he's been in law enforcement for over 30-some years. He's very devoted to what he does, and he's a no-nonsense guy. He's going to get things done. So Donald Trump is starting to get his promises in line, saying, here's what I'm going to do. And America, one of the biggest things America voted on, aside from inflation, was immigration. And now he's got a border czar who's going to be a border czar, and he's going to get things done. And frankly, isn't that what America was asking for? You know, the parents of children that were raped and murdered by these gangs, Venezuela, Colombia, Nicaragua, all of those people, yeah, Tom's going to do something about it, trust me. And he's already said, this is how I'm going to do it. If you don't like it, then get the hell out of the way because I'm going to do it. And he really means it. So, one promise Trump made, going to take care of immigration and get something done. Well, he's starting to do it. And the guy he appointed to do it, Tom Homan, no nonsense, he will, I trust you, he will start getting the job done. Just wait and see. And then, of course, you're going to have the lawsuits coming the other way. Nothing different in America, nothing different at all. Well, a while back I told you about the brand new chief of staff for the President of the United States. Not the current president, but it's President number 44, going to be Donald Trump. And what he's done, he's appointed the first woman in history to be the chief of staff. Well, that's hardly unusual, but what's more unusual is who it is. Her name is Susan Wiles. She's been around a long time. She's worked for other presidents like Ronald Reagan and among many others. But she's been with Donald Trump since 2016. What makes her unique is who her father is. Her father is the late, great sportscaster, football player, Pat Summerall. That's right, Pat Summerall. So I thought, well, why not do a little sports thing? I'm doing politics. Let's try to get away from that for a bit and do something about sports. Where does Pat Summerall rank in the listing of sports greats? Well, I had to go check out a few areas. One was the American Sportscaster Association. Didn't even know they existed. USA Today, who I don't trust on politics, but maybe on sports. Okay, I'll give them a shot. And a thing called Bleacher Reports. And they were listing their top people in the sports field. Now, let's start out with the American Sportscaster Association. They say the number one person was Vin Scully. I don't disagree with that. Vin Scully was a classic baseball announcer, and everybody knows who Vin Scully is, one of the best. Number two, they said, was Mel Allen. Number three was Red Barber. Now, you got to go back a long time to remember these names. And number four was Kurt Gowdy, ABC. Kurt was something special, great sportscaster. And number five on the list, Howard Cosell. Well, Howard Cosell was good at a lot of things, but number five, debatable. Bob Costas comes in at number six. Jim McKay, also from ABC, did some great stuff. But number seven, well, was, as I said, Jim McKay. Number eight, one of my favorites, probably the best college football announcer I've ever heard, is none other than Keith Jackson. Yep, Keith Jackson. Number nine, Al Michaels. Do you believe in miracles? Miracle on Ice. Hockey. And number 10, Dick Enberg. Made that famous statement, oh my. Okay? So that's from the American Sportscasters Association. So then I went over to USA Today. They rank number one is John Francona. I don't know if you know who he is. He is the voice of God. He is the voice you hear on NFL films. He was that voice. Now, after he passed away, they went to another individual, and he took over for John, but John was the voice. I mean, probably one of the greatest of all time, and he was great. Followed him, they say number two, according to USA, after John, number two was Pat Summerall. Football broadcaster, regal, royalty. He was style, he was class. Number three was John Madden. Well, that's funny because Summerall and Madden worked together, and John Madden, boom, bang, pow, whatever. Even the video game, he was number three on the list. Number four was Howard Cosell. Once again, shows up somewhere. Number five, Dandy Don Meredith. Number six, Kurt Gowdy. Another great sportscaster. Number 7, Al Michaels, once again, Miracle on Ice. Number 8, Dick Enberg. Number 9, Ray Scott. I think he was a great for the Green Bay Packers, if my memory serves me right. And number 10 was a combo between Brent Musburger, Phyllis George, lady, good, very good, Irv Cross, and Jimmy the Greek Snyder. Jimmy the Greek Snyder, by the way, got tossed off of the program on the what he was doing there with Brent because he said something about African Americans. He said they were bred to be better athletes, and he said the only place left for white people was to be coaches because the players were being taken over by the African American folks. He was tossed off and fired for that. Well, you take a look at the makeup of the leagues, and maybe he was more correct than anything else. And then finally, the Bleacher Reports did the 6 greatest athletes of all time. Greatest, as far as media goes. Baseball, they said, was Vin Scully. College football, Keith Jackson. Pro football, Pat Summerall. Basketball, Chick Hearn. And then they went on to hockey, Bob Miller. Soccer, Andres Carter. Remember, he went, goal! That was the guy. And for me, hockey, Bob Chase. Those are just some of the best people, the greatest people in their professions. A little something, you can argue about somebody, you can bring in other names. That's what, according to the American Sportscaster Association, USA Today, and you can throw that one out if you want, the Bleacher Report. Some of the best in the sports broadcasting world. There they are, folks. And now you know. Now it ties in with the lady who is now going to be the chief of staff of the President of the United States because her dad is none other than Pat Summerall. Indiana State Representative Bob Morris, a gentleman from Fort Wayne who I think owns a bunch of health food shops, has come up with a rather novel idea he's promoting involving education for students here in the state of Indiana. And here's what he's saying. He's saying, look, we got a lot of kids in school who don't really want to be in school, don't like being in school, and definitely are not going to be college material. But they have interests. They have things they want to learn. He said, why don't we do this? Why don't we do like we did back in the old days of the 60s, where we had crafts and things they could learn. They used to have auto shop and wood shop and metal shop. Those things used to exist in schools back in the old days. Now, they still have it here in Fort Wayne, the Anthos Center. They do specialized things, automobiles and those kind of things. But he's saying, why not do it this way? Kid goes to school half a day, and the other half a day goes to the Anthos Center, learns a craft, learns a trade. Because these kids need to learn something, and something they want to do, and something they enjoy doing. Because not everybody is cut out to go to college. Sorry. You know, maybe 25, 40%, who knows? But the vast majority of people do not need college and don't have to go to college. And I'll tell you what, there's some people out there earning a whole lot of money who have no college degree. Ask an electrician, ask a plumber. Yeah, they'll tell you how much they earn. Ask an auto mechanic. So, Bob Morris, man's got a pretty good point. Let's consider this. Putting in those kind of trades available for kids who just are going to graduate from high school, that's fine. Let them learn something. After they get out of school, if they want to go into places like Ivy Tech to get certified and become a certified mechanic, believe me, those mechanics make pretty good money. Or those kind of things are available. You know, craftsmen, woodsmen, woodworking, HVAC, all those things are available at teaching colleges like Ivy Tech. Things kids can learn. So maybe we ought to use the high schools to say, okay, you spend half the day in high school getting your degree, and the other half you learn a trade. Wouldn't that be a better use of what our schools are there for? I'm just saying. I'm saying that because, yes, I've gone to college, that's fine. But I know people that have no business being in college, and I've seen people drop out of college because they're going, why are we doing this? Learn a craft, learn a trade, learn something that you can use your hands, and it's good for the rest of your life. You make a lot more money than a lot of college grads do. I know some college grads that are tending bar. Yeah, they got a college degree, but it ain't worth crap. So think about learning that. Think about what Bob Morris says. May not be a bad idea. May not be a bad idea at all. Something the kids can learn. Half a day in school, half a day in the class in the shop area. Learn something, probably good for you. It's my thought on it. Just thought I'd pass it along to you. That's all I have for right now. See ya.